minutes till we will gather everybody in this event room and we will begin. Excellent. I see that more and more people are joining us over here, so we're waiting for final a few moments till everybody else will join us at the webinar. Excellent. I think we're ready to begin. Final participants are joining our webinar. I see that people are coming and coming. So let's agree that the ones who will join us later will join us later yet. Feel welcome to join our RPA related webinar, Joint Robotic Software Revolution. Today we're talking about RPA. Today we're talking about innovative technology. This webinar is dedicated for a specific geographical region for US East Coast. Nevertheless, I see that we're having more than 130 participants in our list for today, and geography, in fact, turned out to be much wider. Let's agree on the following. I will take a look at our list and tell you what are the cities where you are joining us from today, and let's agree that in case you will not hear your region, please feel free to add it in the comments. I do apologize in advance if I will miss some of the locations because the registration is quite active, so people are adding more and more active. Okay, so today we're having participants from Warsaw, Katowice, Peseczno, from Austin, Texas, London, San Francisco, New York, Gdańsk, Bucharest, Wrocław, Miami, Egypt, Lodz, Aberdeen, Dubai, Plano, Texas, Bangalore, Zielona Góra, Moscow, Sopot, Beverly Hills, Brooklyn, São Paulo, Kiev, Istanbul, Houston, Wembley, Toronto, Albania, Chennai, Gilbert, Chicago, Trenton, Mexico, and Mumbai. So welcome everyone. A great day to all of you. Good morning, good evening, depending on your time zone. Let's finally begin. Today we're talking about innovative technology, and of course, for the ones of you who will stay with us till the very end of the webinar, we prepared some special gifts and presents, of course, related to innovative technology. On top of that, this webinar is dedicated for business people, which means that we will be using during this webinar a very simple, straightforward language so that we are staying at the same page On top of that, for the ones of you, for developers and technical people who are joining us today, please feel free to join our technical webinar. So those are the events dedicated for RPA developers and people who are programming using robotic process automation software platforms. The closest webinar will happen at the end of October. This current webinar is dedicated to the business audience. So today we will be mostly talking about automation culture, and today we will try to discover jointly what is robotic process automation, how this technology works, and how the businesses benefit. Excellent. Let's begin. Let me introduce myself. Finally, my name is Anastasia, and I am working as Global Business Development Director at Giant. Giant is the company that creates a robotic process automation. This is an RPA vendor, meaning that in this company, humans and robots are working together. And I know quite a lot about this topic, so I will be able and happy to share with you some of the business knowledge. Let's take a look at our agenda briefly. Today, we will be talking about robotic process automation, and we will try to discover this technology together. Now, we will learn how automation culture changes business processes all around the world, get inspired by software platform user experience, and of course, jointly we'll do our first steps towards automation. Let's begin. Let's first try to understand together what do we mean by saying RPA? What do we mean by saying robotic process automation? In fact, RPA nowadays became a very mysterious topic on the market. Literally mysterious because this is still a quite fresh technology. RPA is a technology was invented only 6 years ago in 2015, and still I would not say that this is a blue ocean, but there are maximum hundreds of companies globally who do RPA development, and of course, thousands of other companies who do RPA implementation and reselling of this innovative technology. So, talking about RPA, I must admit that RPA and robotics became some kind of buzzword on the market currently. A lot of people they heard about RPA. This is somewhere together with big data, blockchain, artificial intelligence, ICO, RPA in the same basket. So everybody at some point heard about it. But what exactly is that? How it looks like? How does it work? This is still a mystery. Nevertheless, I believe that it is important to mention that, of course, when we're talking about RPA, we're not talking about physical robots. We're talking about program. We're talking about the code which is dealing with business process automation. What kind of processes can be automated? Definitely the most important and the main rule for the business process automation is that this kind of business process should be repetitive. Talking about the repetitiveness of business processes, I believe it from time to time it's really hard to identify if this business process is repetitive or not, so from the very first sight. So in case some of you already came with some ideas in mind, as it usually happens on our webinars, let's agree that by the end of this webinar, we will have Q&A session where you will be able to address to me your questions. Now, and in case you're having some specific topic in mind, you can just put it into comments at the end of this webinar, and together we will decide whether this process is repetitive or non-repetitive, whether this process is automative or non-automative. Robotics, process automation, and software robots, in fact, they revolutionize the way we think about business. They lower operational costs, increase employee satisfaction, and decrease the number of errors in simple tasks. Indeed, and nowadays, repetitive processes, they become a part of every single business. But more and more companies all around the world, especially in this time of pandemic, post-pandemic crisis, more and more companies, they come to conclusion that RPA is not a spaceship anymore. This is a kind of very friendly and flexible technology that can be implemented here and now at a very democratic cost and will help a lot of businesses, not only to accelerate business processes, not only to work on the cost and work on return of investment, but also optimize business processes in the whole organization. Let's come back to one of the most repetitive questions right away, because we are facing with this question every single week here at Giant. Many people are worried about the topic if a robot can replace humans someday, if we humans have to live in fear and be afraid of losing our workplaces because robots are becoming more and more clever. They are becoming able and capable to deal with more and more tasks in different industries. Definitely, our official answer is no, not at all. Now, we believe that robots, they are perfect assistants to the human, but only assistants, because by the end of the day, none of the business processes can be done without the human touch. While robots, they're able to take the simplest, repetitive, routine tasks in order to help us human beings to be less tired and more effective, focus on more creative, high level, or strategical tasks. Talking about RPA today, definitely we will be speaking also about the types of business processes that can be automated. So more or less you will be able to understand what automation means in business. In fact, it is important to start our conversation about RPA with the benefits of robotic process automation. Like I've already mentioned, implementation of RPA can help you dealing with company costs, and as Gartner research says, we can save up to 40% on labor cost. Also, RPA means boosting company efficiency by up to 5 times, increase quality and no human error, integration without disturbing legacy system, implementation at a fraction of the cost, standardized processes, ability to focus on higher level activities, handling larger customer volumes, and of course, increased employee satisfaction. Talking about employee satisfaction, definitely we will come back to this topic at the second part of this webinar. We're planning to have a huge conversation around it. Yet let's more focus on the features of RPA. Definitely, we can say that RPA requires less work and more results in terms of in terms of human perspective. Let's just think that robots needs no time off. Robots, they never go to vacations, they never take sick leaves, they always work 24/7 at the same level of motivation. So indeed, we must admit that robots are the perfect assistants to the human. Besides, the use of robots can reduce your headcount costs from 25 to 40%, promising quick return of investment. Employees can now focus on more creative work and devote more time to customers. RPA technology can execute a variety of tasks in a non-destructive way for other processes. Robots can work with all platforms and all applications, naturally adjusting to your company as it evolves and with no need to re-engineer your legacy systems. Robots can precisely measure all the activities they perform, allowing you to analyze each automated process and see the elements that could be improved or simplified. Unlike humans, robots are capable of performing tasks in a standardized way every single time. There is no room for human error anymore. Thanks to robots, you can now achieve 100% of efficiency every single time. Talking about RPA, let's also spend a few minutes in order to understand what are the most common robot tasks. In few words, I must mention that RPA it is a very universal technology. Almost every single business process can be automated. Anything that human being is doing using the keyboard can be automated. Nevertheless, saying that robots can do everything, of course, it will not give you exact understanding of capability of robots. Definitely, some of the robot tasks can be more common. So let's take a look at them. Over here, we can name data capturing and entrance, scanning automated, sending automated emails and attachments, credit and AML checks, filling out application forms, rule-based decision making. Over here, it is important a moment to stop for a few minutes and make a small note that, in fact, decision making rule based is a very important feature of RPA. And in fact, now RPA, it's not the same as AI. Usually, robotic process automation and artificial intelligence are put somewhere together. Indeed, RPA is a part of AI, but there is a big difference between AI creatures and RPA creatures. If AI creatures, they able to make their own decisions and to do some additional self-learning. RPA robots, this is the code robot which is framed very strictly by humans for purpose. Those robots are not allowed to make their own decisions and to do something extra except for going from point A to point B because we humans decided so. What am I talking about? Imagine that you are an accountant and you would like to automate sending invoices. You send invoices every day from 10 to 12, and now you would like to give your robot this kind of task and make your robot dealing with this task daily. Definitely, you do not want your robot doing anything else except for sending invoices. You do not want your robot to learn other technologies or to learn other actions except for sending invoices. This is exactly how RPA works. On top of that, among common robot tasks, we can name extracting information from scanned documents via OCR, document downloading and attaching, generating reports. As you see, the amount of work robots can do is absolutely unlimited. On top of that, I must admit that the same as business processes can be different, also business areas where RPA can be implemented can be also very, very different. Over here, let's take a look about to the common of them. RPA can be implemented both in front office and back office. In software testing, you very frequently it is used. Account opening processes, insurance and claims processing, call centers, accounts payable, business processes, outsourcing, and many more. Today, I've prepared for you 3 case studies. Of course, those are the cases of automation done by a giant, by our company, because we know them quite detailed. And today I will be able to share them with you so you will see some specific examples. Like I've already mentioned, almost all of the business tasks are good for automation. All of the business areas and industries are also good for the automation. This is a very, very generic statement. That's why today we will be talking a lot about specific examples, about the precise examples of RPA usage. Definitely talking about industrial automation, we might admit that there are some industries where we're having a tons of repetitive job. Who does have a lot of repetitive job? Accountants do have a lot of repetitive job. Banking sector has a lot of repetitive job, insurance sector, and so on and so on. So of course, those kind of companies, they're very frequently onboarding automation first on the market, and they're kind of moving in the avant-garde of industrial and business automation globally. Nevertheless, there are many more industries where automation can be implemented. Let's take a look at the examples I've prepared for you today. First of all, we will be talking about automation of reporting for the industry department. This automation was done within a week time and saved 40 hours monthly to our customer, which is around $6,300 per annum, or 25% of ROI per year. Second example is dedicated to insurance sector, and it was the case of renewal automation, which was done within 9 days and saved at least 45 hours monthly to the insurance company we were working with. Was ROI was done in the dramatic increase of sales. So by the end of this project, sales increased by 28%. And the last but not least, my favorite example of payroll automation. Definitely, payroll is also a repetitive process. We need to do payroll at least once a month. So this is kind of repetitive business task, which means that we can also automate payroll, of course. So this kind of project I will be talking about was done by our UK-based HR services, a customer, and we did this payroll automation for HR department within 1 week. Time spent on that task decreased by 920% per month, and the ROI reached over than 10% for the company. As you can see, I'm putting a lot of attention towards the numbers. I'm putting a lot of attention towards the timing of projects. Why? Because RPA, this is the unique technology where you can measure the profit, where you can measure the implementation stages right before going into this project. What does it mean? It means that this technology is very friendly. As you can see, it can be implemented in days and weeks, not in years. Definitely, when we're talking about more complicated business processes, for example, automation of department or even automation of the organization, of course, such a large and heavy processes, they can continue for months. But this example shows us that payroll automation can be done within a 1 week. Insurance service renewal automation can be done in 9 days. So basically, taking the decision about RP, it means that you can receive your robot, you can automate your business process right here, right now. It doesn't cost like a spaceship. Those kind of automations, they're usually having a very democratic prices. And what is the most important for us, for business people, as you can see, we can easily calculate the return of investment before the project launch. That means that we are people who are having final decision makers, company owners, company founders, CEOs, management board. We can come to them with the statement that implementing RPA into the business, this is not some kind of experiment for the company, but definitely we can come with the exact calculation of return of investment, of cost savings for the company. This data is extremely sensitive for the final decision making, for sure. Okay, let's move forward. So we saw three examples, but basically this slide should show you that the amount of industries for business process automation is absolutely unlimited. RPA is very flexible according to the industry implementation. And over here, you can see some of the giant customers, all of those brands and companies at some point, they're using our technology or they had some projects with us in the past. So let's take a look. RPA can be implemented in fashion sector. Let's take a great example of Zara. Banking sector, of course, when we're mentioning such a brands and companies like Metro Bank, BNP Paribas, First Ireland Bank. Food and beverage, Red Bull, everybody knows this company, I hope. And of course, companies which are needless to explain, like Delphi Technologies, like DPD, like Fujifilm, like Ferrero, they're also using automation. On top of that, participants who are joining our webinar from Poland, they will recognize PKP. This is the railway big company. So here, this example can be a great example of the way how RPA can be implemented not only in B2B, but even in B2G sector. Okay, let's move forward. I believe that at the very first part of this webinar, we were able to brainstorm a little bit on RPA and discover this technology more or less together. Like I was mentioning in the second part of the webinar, we will be talking about automation culture. I'm sure that a lot of us, they came here not only to listen about the business advantages of RPA, but also to talk about the way how RPA, how robots influences the very heart of every organization, our employees. Of course, like I mentioned, RPA helps us to focus, us human beings, to focus on more high level, strategical, creative tasks, and forget about a routine, a repetitive simple work. Let me give you a very interesting example. Um, Right now, when I'm speaking to you, when I'm leading this webinar, I have three robots which are currently work for me. One robot is focusing on prospecting at the moment. Another robot is searching for strategic partnerships for Giant. Third robot is recruiting on the social media. I believe that you will be very curious to hear about the last case. How does this small recruiter robot looks like, how it works, and how does it help me? Basically, this is a very elementary automation that can be programmed in even less than 24 hours. And this kind of automation works based on the social media like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Basically, this robot, before it starts working, it receives some kind of key triggers from my side, some kind of research criteria. What kind of triggers I give to my robot? So we're talking about recruitment, right? Giant is constantly in process of looking for new software stores on the market. So I give my robots task about the geography of this expert, what kind of skill set those people they need to have, now what is their experience, and so on and so on. So knowing this information, my robot starts carefully scan the market, scan social media accounts, finding those people matching this criteria, and even contact them on my behalf. So usually I join this conversation only at the moments when we see that there is a joint interest now from the side of the candidate as well. And the last but not least, what I wanted to mention today, all of you, our dear webinar participants, you were invited by robots. Definitely, this is the great news for marketing people, for people who are organizing events online and offline, because we invested zero human forces into promoting this webinar, into collecting more than 130 registered people today. Basically, all of those people, they were found, they were invited by robots, they were followed by robots. So if you received at some point invitations, emails from us, now they all were signed and organized not by human beings. As you see, this kind of process is extremely curious, but by the end of the day, I believe that the most important goal of robotic process automation is not to make robots working together with humans, but take out a robot out of human. According to a research of International Data Corporation, 80% of decision makers who have adopted robotic process automation provide workers with access to automation tools. And 71% of workers are optimistic about automation and say they're happy to spend time on more interesting work and get more work completed. Let me also share with you some insights how we here work, we here humans. I mean, humans at Giant working together with robots, working every day shoulder by shoulder with robots. Definitely, you know that there is some kind of tradition in many companies to give some kind of corporate presence to the people on the first work day. It can be some kind of corporate t-shirts, caps, maybe notebooks, branded ones. We over here at Giant, we grant newcomers at the very first day with a small robot, a personal assistant. I would share with you my personal enthusiasm at the very first day when I joined Giant, and I understood that I will have personal assistants, not only, but these personal assistants will be done by robots. I cannot tell with you how excited I was, and I'm still excited because, like I've mentioned, while I'm leading this webinar, my robots are lead generating, my robots are searching for candidates, my robots are searching for potential partnerships, our robots are doing marketing promotion. So let's imagine if I would not have those small virtual assistants, if I would not have those robots who are helping me on the daily basis, Would I have this opportunity to be here today with you and lead this webinar for you? Most likely not, because I would be overloaded with this amount of work, with this amount of repetitive routine work that I have to do every single day. On top of that, it is important to mention that our commercial people are extremely happy about automation that came to their life. I know that most of you, according to the registration list, you have some example, some experience in business development, some experience in sales. Now, I might guess that a lot of the participants, they are heading sales teams, or at some point they do some sales themselves. So you must imagine that the biggest and the heaviest part of the daily day of salespeople is lead generation. This is the most routine and monotonous work. And according to our calculation, it takes from 3 to 4 hours daily. Our salespeople, our commercial people, they're happy to work with robots who do all of the prospecting and lead generation stage for them. Now imagine that people who are having those extra 3 or 4 hours daily, how they can use these hours if they use them wisely for negotiation, for meeting with customers, for strategy and workshop sessions in the company. Indeed, people using automation are becoming not only more organized in terms of time management, but they are becoming more effective, being able to focus on high level tasks during the daily day. On top of that, the mood of such people is way better now compared to the people who are doing the same routine job again and again. Nobody coming in the morning to the office would like to see unhappy, tired faces of the people. Everybody would like to see happy, smiling employees coming to the office in the morning. At this point, we can state that automation is satisfaction. Talking about automation today, definitely I will need to spend just a few moments explaining to you how robotic process automation works. I know I remember that I was mentioning and promising to you today that this webinar will be non-technical. So let me spend just a few minutes explaining to you the basic parts for the ones who would be eager to dig deeper into technology. Now they can join our technical webinar at the end of October. Today, I will tell you just the few basic moments about the work of RPA systems. Of course, I will be mentioning and highlighting this moment on the basics of Giant's software system, which I know the best. Over here, we are having two platforms, Giant Studio and Giant Orchestrator. Studio works as a software platform where developers can create robots from scratch, write this program, write this code that will automate repetitive business processes. On top of that, we're having Orchestrator. Orchestrator, in fact, this is the enterprise solution. This type of solution is good for companies who are automating the batches of business processes. If you're having not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 robots, but 50 robots, 250 robots in your organization, Orchestrator will be extremely helpful in order to track the effectiveness of those robots, to take a look at their actions, to track errors, and of course, to measure BI analytics of the work of those form of robots. On top of that, I would like to share with you that this year we were very lucky because Infotech, that's a British research agency, they mentioned Giant in their magical RPA quadrant as one of top 4 global RPA champions, which means quite a lot for us. It means that we're moving in the right direction and we're able to proceed properly with our vision of automation culture, with our vision of expanding this automation culture globally, not only to enterprise level companies, but also to small and micro companies who are onboarding step by step robotic process automation recently. All right, let's move forward. Let's also talk a little bit about the software ecosystem. What is the very important part about RPA? RPA can be organically paired with almost any single system that you can imagine yourself, with any OCR system, virtualization system, with any portal, ERP or CRM, with any suite, with any browser, with any AI platform or console application. What it means? It means that RPA in practice is the new way of integration, because RPA, these robots, they are pretending as a human, and they're working pretending they're humans, meaning that they are repeating human operations that we're basically doing. In this case, what we can mention that robotic process automation is the brand new way of integration on the market, and it means that old school classical IT integration in the way we used to know it in the past no longer exists anymore. For some kind of businesses, this is a huge important discovery in the IT market. On top of that, today I've promised to you that we will spend a few minutes doing first steps towards the robotic process automation. I am sure that many of you came not only to listen about RPA as an innovation technology on the market, not only to listen about the way how robots and humans are working together, but I believe that a lot of participants are very serious business practical people, and most likely you came with ideas of your own projects over here today, or you came with some automation pilot ideas. So today I will give you some kind of business hints how to start your first steps towards robotic process automation journey. First of all, like I've already mentioned when we were talking about the case studies, every single robotic process automation project starts with the broad business process analysis. What does it mean? It means that coming to the point of decision making about automation, you need to first analyze your business process, build it step by step, and understand how you will be dealing with this process. Analyze the cost savings of the company, calculate a ROI, go through commercials together with our specialists. Also, good news. As you remember, on the very beginning of this webinar, I was mentioning that we prepared some special gifts and presents for the participants of the webinar. So gift one is a free of charge business process automation. So in case some of you came with the process automation ideas, we will be able to discuss them and do this RPA analysis free, absolutely free of charge for you. How to start drafting your business process. This is a very tricky moment that a lot of business people are dealing with. Definitely, right now there are a lot of mind maps which are available online. Most of them are free of charge, but you can also use a very old school and a good methodology. You can simply take your notebook, you can take your pen and start drawing down this business process step by step in the way how it exists in your company. So with this a simple scheme, you can already apply to every single robotic process automation company, and using this business process, you can talk about your automation. Like I've mentioned, at this stage, together we decide on the automation needs, we go through commercials, we calculate ROI, because by the end of the day, by calculating the return of investment, of robotic process automation, the most important decision should be done whether you're going into RPA project or you do not. Basically, what is also the most important over here at the very first steps, we provide trainings, personal cabinet, where we assist on the first trials and help to deliver results. Definitely over here, there might be two basic scenario. First, a scenario works for bigger companies, for enterprise companies, the ones who are having their own IT departments inside. Nowadays, you know that huge companies like KPMG, like EY, they have not only their IT departments, but they have RPA departments with people who are dealing only with robotic process automation. So if you have internal IT department, in this case, we can teach you how to create those robots. We can show you now how to do automation from scratch. So you will be using your own internal sources, and our software in order to create automation. There is also an alternative plan for smaller companies, for medium, small, and even micro companies who do not have these capabilities, who do not have trained developers and those resources to do automation internally. For such a company, SaaS solution will be perfect. Robot as a service is exactly the way of automation that can be perfectly matched in smaller sizes of organization. At this point, RPA companies, they can create a special robot that would be done according to your automation process. So basically, you are buying, in this case, not a plain technology, but a ready-made solution. You're buying a robot that will be dealing with your specific goals. At this point, if you're having option one, if you're having your developers who are able to investigate into RPA, we prepared a second gift today, which is 1 month of non-commercial usage of our giant studio developer license. If you are very curious to play a little bit with our sandbox and investigate how this system looks like, this present will be really matching your corporate goals. Now, on the other hand, if you would like to work with service, if you would like to work with the ready-made robots, in this case, definitely we can talk about your specific project, and one of our strategic partners, which we're having more than 150 currently in 57 different countries, will be able to work on your specific custom case. Excellent. I believe that we went through the most crucial moments we were planning for today. At the end of this meeting, let me also share with you my personal data. Frankly speaking, I am a very open-minded person in terms of any innovative technology discussion. So I will be very happy to continue this conversation with each of you outside and after this webinar. So please feel free to reach out to me over here. I'm sharing my Gmail, I'm sharing my mobile number, and also my LinkedIn account. And for the ones of you who are having iPhones or any devices or tablets that are supporting QR codes, you can see a QR code that you can easily scan, and then all of my personal data will be downloaded into your device automatically. Please also don't hesitate to reach out to me if you're having some kind of projects in mind. From time to time, I'm taking personally and work personally with the most interesting ones. On the other hand, if you do not want to work with me personally, if you do not mind to work with anybody else, then one of our robotic process business analysts will be taking care about your RPA process analysis, which we're doing free of charge today for you, for the participants of the webinar. Excellent. I believe we're coming to the end of our session, and we are keeping the last a few minutes for the Q&A session. So in case you're having any questions about automation, in case you're having any questions about business processes, please feel free to address them to me. And I see that we're already having the first question. How long does it take to implement a giant software? Well, it really depends. As you remember, when we were talking about the use cases and case studies, we saw three different examples which projects were done within 1 week, within 2 weeks. So when I was talking about my robot assistants that can be programmed within 24 hours, this is another case of very elementary automation. So I would answer as follows. It depends on the complexity of your business process. Elementary automation can be done in 24 hours. I would say standard single business process automation can be done within 1 week. And of course, if and when we're talking about the complicated subject of department automation, company automation, this kind of project can be last up to 1 month, up to 2 months, depending on the needs of the business. Okay, we're having the next one. Do I have to have an IT department to implement giant solution? Not unnecessary. Of course, there are two cases. Like we've discussed, if you're having your internal IT department, then you can work independently using RPA technology and your crew, your team of developers that will be able to build robots on the basics of this technology. Of course, in this case, you should not only buy a technological solution, but go through some training and certification, which of course we provide as a vendor. But on the other hand, if you do not have these kind of resources, if you do not have your internal IT sources, SaaS solution will be something which is perfectly matching your business. Robot as a service is also a very common case of implementation when you are buying now not a software, but you are buying a ready-made robot which is done in accordance to your business process. So this is exactly the case of accountant which is sending invoices from 10 to 12 every single day. Of course, our strategic partners, they can prepare this kind of robot for you and launch it right away, that this robot will be doing single or multitask according to the needs of your organization. Do we have more questions? I propose that we wait just for a few last minutes and see if we will have now more questions from the audience. Yet, I would like to share with you some interesting findings that I recently discovered. I am very much obsessed about the human brain research. And I've read some kind of interesting medical research. One scientists say that usually when people are asked question in the audience or on a meeting, they are taken from 5 to 7 seconds to address this question. If we're talking about e-meeting, about video conference call, Skype or Zoom, or this webinar, for example, it takes even 2 times more time to address this question. If we're talking about introverts, you can double this time again, and that would be exactly the time needed to address the question in the audience. But on the other hand, there is also a very interesting ethical question that arises. If my boss or my teacher is asking me, do I have a questions? Of course, I'm not your boss and not your teacher today. I'm just a business person who is sharing some business experiences today. But if my boss or my teacher is asking, do you have any questions? Am I obliged to have this question? Or do I have my personal right to say that I do not have any questions? This is interesting. Okay, we're waiting for a final several seconds to see if we will have more questions from the audience today. Okay, looks like we do not, but in case you will remember that you forgot to ask me something very important, as it usually happens, don't hesitate to do it outside of the webinar. I've shared with you all of my personal data, so we can definitely continue this conversation about RPA, about innovation technology outside of this event. Yet, I would like to wish you a pleasant evening ahead. I would like to thank you for joining us today at this webinar. Let's stay in touch. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.